I remember this story as a distant echo of something I want to forget, and it happened when I was a child living in a remote part of Hidalgo. Every day I had to go to my grandmother's house to deliver the food for the pigs she had, which my mother prepared for them and also for our animals. So she sent me with a bucket full of disgusting things. Scraps, tortillas, and rotten food. The pigs ate all of it. The path to her hut was longer than I remembered. On that particular day the dirt gap. It wound through the trees, and the fog descended with a strange tinge. It was thick as if trying to envelop me, as if it had a life of its own. As a child, my grandmother told me that the Sierra was alive, that the mountains were watching, and that the forest also held mysteries that were best left unexamined. I used to like those kinds of stories. I would sit by the hearth and my grandmother would tell me the legends while she gave us coffee and bread. Now they just unsettle me in so many ways. I arrived shortly before sunset and the cabin loomed before me, older and smaller than I remembered, but there's something about it that makes me feel uneasy. It seems to be waiting for me. I don't know how to explain it, but it was as if the atmosphere had changed in many ways. I remember opening the door and a creaking noise breaking the silence. The interior smells of coffee and cooking oil. Everything is just as she left it. The jars lined up on the shelves, the bunches of rue hanging in the corners, the candle, the half-burned table. For a second, I have the absurd feeling that my grandmother is still here, in some corner watching me, but she's dead. I shake my head and put the bucket down on the side of the table as I listen to the grunting. Hungry animals wait for food, and it always took me a while to give it to them. I don't know why I was tempted to keep them waiting. And then I saw it above the door, carved into the wood, a symbol I don't remember from my childhood, a spiral surrounded by lines as sharp as claws. I run my fingers over it and a shiver runs down my spine. Something rustles outside, making me shudder. Being on alert, I stay still, listening to the wind, and I tell myself it's just the wind. Finally, I go outside to feed the pigs and they grunt, they fight, they disgust me. I don't know why my dad doesn't sell them. I don't know what they remind him of, but they're disgusting. I just finish and go back home. I go out for some firewood and see the footprints. They're big, too big to be human footprints. I just finish and go back home. I don't want to think. I imagine maybe they're from some animal, hoping it would swallow the damn pigs. I don't understand how it is that they're alone almost all the time and nothing happens to them. I just dust my hands and walk back with the bucket along path 1, where I feel like I'm being watched. It was always like this, but this time the feeling of unease was more present. When I get home, I receive the news that my father had an accident and has to go to a clinic in town to treat a wound he got from the axe while he was logging. They both leave and I'm left alone. It's not the first time, but this time I feel scared and I don't know why. I was already here. It's late at night. So I light the fire and try to convince myself that everything is okay, but then I hear a howl nearby, a barking coyote, maybe a large or wild dog, one of the many around. Yes, that must be it, I thought. My heart leapt and I cautiously opened it. The cold began to penetrate me, and while I searched through the drawers for blankets, my hand stumbled upon something wrapped in an old shawl. I carefully take it out and discover a notebook with worn covers. My grandmother's diary had been kept by my mother, and it was something valuable but also strange, for it bore letters and symbols I didn't recognize. My heart leaps. I open it cautiously. The pages are full of smudging ink and shaky strokes. I run my fingers over the familiar writing and read softly, "The earth is restless, they have returned." I swallow. I don't know how much longer I can hold them back. The air in the house feels heavy and something in my chest tightens. If I die, let the house not be left alone and let the pigs be fed. They keep the secret. My hands tremble and my grandmother. I knew I was going to die. My hands tremble. My grandmother knew she was going to die. The feeling of being watched grows stronger. An icy knot settles in my stomach and then I hear it. It was a kind of long, mysterious murmur that could be heard outside. I approach the windows, my heart pounding in my throat, holding my breath. The darkness of the forest is thick, but there's something there. I'm so afraid of what might be there. Opening that diary, seeing Grandma's last will, makes me want to run away, but I have to. I'll hold back. I'm home, so what could possibly happen? But then 2 dots glimmer in the blackness of the distant mountain. They look like eyes. My body freezes because I'm not alone. There's something, and I'm sure it's nothing good. The fog moves as if. There's a faint creaking a few feet from the house, and I don't know whether to approach or run. My skin burns with fear, and then something scrapes against the door. It's slow and insistent, a kind of harsh sound like claws dragging themselves over wood, clearly intended to make me feel the worst of terrors. Well, it succeeded as I cling to the little faith I had and regret many things. Soon I could hear a noise, a deep, distorted voice repeating my name. Hearing it, my blood runs cold and the journal I was still holding slips from my hands. I lock my room and the night has just begun. Hours pass and the night feels endless. I remain in bed with my back against the wall, hugging my legs, trying to control my breathing. Outside, the forest, the sounds, they seem to be breathing with me. I can hear it. It's not the wind, it's not the trees, it's something else, something that's been out there ever since I opened the diary. Every time I close my eyes, I see its 2 points shining. The darkness was an animal, that's for sure. They seem to act with the intelligence of a man, but no person can have those flashes. The air inside the cabin feels scorching, not only because of the early morning chill, but because of the fear that nestles in my stomach, and it's as if something invisible is pressing on my chest. The creaking of something outside where my father was placing the firewood startles me. Something is moving stealthily outside and I can sense that it seems to be searching for something. Perhaps it wants to get into the house, and that's when I realize that perhaps it's something that wants to hurt me. I feel terror seizing me completely, trying to convince myself I'm imagining this. But then I hear it, a sharp bang on the wall, then another louder one, and a third right against the door, trying to break it down. I cover my mouth to keep from screaming because something is trying to get in. Something seems to be breaking the glass and I don't understand how they can't get in. I know they're out there but they can't get in. I don't know what kind of sick game is playing out. Then a new sound. This time it's a deep, beastly growl. I close my eyes tightly, clutching the blanket like a shield. They won't get in, they can't. My grandmother had warts, my mother once told me. I didn't pay attention to it, nor to the seals carved on the doors and windows, as well as the ones she'd made on her house, and now it all made sense. Grandmother knew something would happen, but how long could she stop them? The growl turned into something worse. It was a laugh, a voice mixed with something incomprehensible. It seemed distorted, as if something were mocking me. My legs tremble and a cold sweat runs down my back, and then it's gone, just gone. I hear something seem to move away across the yard, ruffling the leaves. It doesn't run away and it doesn't disappear among the trees, it just ceases to be there. All that remains is a long, eerie silence. For that night, I stay awake and wait to hear anything. The real terror comes in the morning. When I go outside, the house seems intact, but scratched doors, broken glass, and strange sounds tell me that something has indeed been lurking and trying to get in. The earth around the house is disturbed, as if a huge animal had been digging, but to my surprise, there are also buried wards at the base of the house. Grandma had thought of everything, the walls and part of the trees. All around them were marked with deep scratches, and worst of all, on the door of the same place where I heard the scratches last night, my name Maricela was carved. I feel truly afraid. That thing or whatever it was had left its mark on me. Just then, the sound of an engine jolts me out of my lethargy. I'm sitting on the patio floor, crying because I feel alone. I search for some answers in my grandmother's diary, open on my lap, my gaze lost in the page that talks about the guardians. If the house falls, it will fall too. The engine stops and I listen. Doors slam. My parents have returned. I jump up and run to them. My mother gets out of the truck, her eyes wide open, terrified. My father stops beside her and curses softly. They're seeing the disaster, the marks in the ground, the claws in the trees, the blood in the corral with the dead chickens and goats. Mom walks toward me and grabs my face with both hands. Her eyes are full of fear. She asks me if I'm okay and I can barely hear her. What's going on, Mom? My voice comes out shaky, as if she weren't mine. And He looks at the diary in my hands and knows I know it too. She looks at me and in her expression I see something worse than fear. I see guilt. My dad takes a step back and doesn't want to hear what's coming, but Mom knows she can't hide it anymore. Your grandmother was a witch, she says softly, as if afraid the forest might hear her. And your grandfather stops and his face grows tense. Your grandfather was a water lion. My blood runs cold and I don't want to understand. Your grandfather wasn't always a monster. He was once a man. But the magic corrupted him, the transformation broke him from the inside and he lost his mind. He became something that is no longer human. My legs tremble as I listen to her. When your grandmother saw what he had become, she banished him. She touched him with oaths and pacts, far from us, but how is he here? What does he want from me? I ask, fearing the answer. Mom looks at me sadly. It's your heritage, your blood has gifts, that's what she seeks from you and me, but I'm too old. How is it that our own blood wants us dead for ambitions? Absurd, you're her granddaughter, her bond, and she's come for you. A shiver runs through my body and I feel like the world is crumbling beneath my feet. Dad clenches his fists and Mom closes her eyes for a second, as if trying to contain the horror reflected on her face. Then her expression changes. Her eyes move from the corral to the house and then back to me. My mother used pigs to trap protective spirits. We must bring them in so we can be safe. I'd forgotten that. Those animals scare away the Nawal. The fear in her eyes was a confirmation of what I already know. If the guardians die, there will be nothing to protect me. I turn around and look at the hillside and my grandmother's shack. It's on the other side of the mountain. I grit my teeth and go for the remaining ones. Dad, I grab his arm. No, you're going alone? I look at him. Yes, he says, we wait longer, he'll come here. I don't know if the house can handle it. Dad, he trembles. Mom closes her eyes and nods. Bring them. I swallow and turn around and start running. The sun is already setting, the forest is waiting for me and something else, something bad too, but I can't stop because if I do, I know the Nawal will find me. First, I reach the corral almost running. The pigs are the only thing that seems normal in that place. When I was little, I used to feed them corn while she told me they were their guardians. I never understood why, but today something is different. The animals are restless, grunting, sniffing the air, pawing the ground desperately. Then I notice, there are marks on their backs, not scars, not spots, symbols, the same ones I saw on the gate. My stomach churns and I cling to the corral, trying to calm my mind, but there's no growl from my back. Fear paralyzes me and I don't want to turn around, I don't want to see what's behind me, but I do. Between the trees, two yellow eyes watch me. They're closer than last night, too close. My whole body tenses and the creatures don't move, they don't flee, they're just watching me. It's as if they're waiting. And then they take a step forward, I see them better. Oh, and there's some kind of were animal, but they're neither. Their skin seems to melt into shadows. Their mouth is too wide and their teeth are too long. They're not wearing any clothes, but their flesh is dark and cracked as if it's been burned from the inside. I don't know how to react and I want to run, but my legs won't respond. The pigs grunt, squeal, and bang furiously against the fences. The creature turns its face toward them. And then it's gone. It doesn't run, it doesn't growl, it just disappears, scared, afraid that the pigs will do something to it, and that's how it is. The animals seem to react to its presence. And then I collapse on the ground, crying and breathless. To recover a little, I pull the pigs out and run with them as if my life depended on it, because I know it does. They're after me because something is following me, I feel it. The animals seem to understand me as if they'd been waiting. In the distance, I can see those eyes shining with a hunger that chills my blood. My grandfather, what's left of him, is on the prowl, but the pigs surround me, standing between me and the Nawal, growling furiously, scratching the ground with their thick hooves. The animals grunt and their bodies seem to grow larger. Heavier and stronger, the creature's eyes move from fact to fact. I understand what they're thinking. If it attacks, it will destroy it. Time stretches. 1 second, 2, 3. In it, it growls, steps back and disappears into the trees. When we get to the house, they lock them in the corral and I give them the best corn we have. Dad takes me by the shoulders, checking him from head to toe. Nana looks at the pigs with a mixture of horror and gratitude. He's gone, she says, but Mom doesn't seem convinced and neither do I. Although everything seems calm, I know he'll never truly leave, he's there. Outside, waiting, sometimes on the coldest nights, when the fog creeps between the trees, I can see his eyes in the distance, watching me from the thicket, patient, hungry, but he doesn't come closer, he can't because I have the guards here. I care for them as if they were the most valuable thing in the world. I bring them corn, fresh water, and I check on them every morning. I don't do it out of affection, I don't do it out of gratitude, but because I know what would happen if I lost them. Not only would the Nawals return, but everything I've done in the forest would return.